Oh, here's my 2003 Ford Excursion 4-wheel drive. And just heard a little clunking from underneath. So, what it turned out to be is my track bar mount. You can see it had already been packed and welded before. And that pack and weld has failed. I'm gonna have to cut all this stuff out, clean it up, and fab up a new mount for this. One thing that might be the stress was incorrect angles. So as the leaf springs are traveling in a vertical plane, if there's too much angle on that track bar, it would have been causing too much stress. Follow along. The first step is I need to remove my hydraulic steering ram. Alright, quite the break, that's for sure. What a lousy fix from before, whatever they did. Well, finally got that nut loosened enough. Get that off of there. There we go. Alright. Now we can see kind of the damage that we have from this track bar bracket breaking. So you can see it really was just that U shape right there that they had done some welding on and just tied into that small little area. So I also want to take a moment to look at this track bar weld job that they had done. Obviously it had cracked before and they had worked on repairing it, but gosh, I mean, there's still, look how horrible that is. So I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. Let's go ahead and see if we can design something up a little bit stronger. It's going to tie in this amount, but at the appropriate ride height for the angles of the drag link and trying to match those up. We've got to be cognizant of what our clearances are, as well as our drag link, so that we don't have it hitting the track bar when we're at a full left turn. So going to be having to do some measurements. Getting the measurements off of my drag link. I've got up here to the midpoint of the flex area, and then the tape measure, one little trick. See how it says +3 inches? Easy way I can just set it down. Whatever my measurement is, 25, it'd be 28. Midpoint, and effectively is the same measurement, so 28, so it's horizontal, flat, even though the drag link is angled, the effective connection points are horizontal. So that means when I'm measuring up my track bar, it's just a little bit longer. So 25 1/4, 28 1/4. So that means when we bring it over here, 28 1/4 should be all the way up here. So you can see we're going to have some potential contact with some of that. And then also to look at what the mount initially had. can see that it was about 1.5 inches too low. So the idea will be to get this mount tied in at the proper height so this track bar is also horizontal, that this will be at 28.25 as well on this side, but that I also take into consideration the point up here for how much suspension compression I'll have. So that's about 3.5, 4 inches. So I'll have to look at that and see. It's going to be kind of close, but we'll be worked on the design and fabrication of this mount here. Clean all this junk up. This track bar mount's not going to work, and I don't need this part over here. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this just to make sure that I've got a good platform to go off of. It's all cleaned up. So now I'll be able to figure out kind of the shape that I want to build into this piece and get it designed. Kind of got a cardboard mock-up of the type of bracket that I'm going to put in. So it's going to come down, tie into the leaf spring mount, tie into the axle tube, and come around. And then the back side, I'm just going to come down from the bracket and then tie into the top of the axle tube as well. So kind of go ahead, transfer this over to some 1/4 inch plate and start cutting. So with the plasma cutter, did some quick work of the bracket, got it cut out, and got my lines marked for my bending. Already started to do a bend, so we're going to go ahead back to the bender. Is it just me, or does it look like a little Tyrannosaurus Rex, a little dinosaur? Anyway, let's go ahead and get it bent. So here I've got the upper part of the bracket all bent up. I'm still going to do a little bit more work on the bottom. I want to work on the inner part of the bracket. So I got to put a bend in here. I always got to make sure I got to bend it on the other side. That's just the bend mark I had on my template. So I got to go ahead and transfer that mark over to the other side. Oops. This will be a little bit more of a dramatic angle since it's going to the top of the axle tube. Looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and test fit it up on the car. One of the other issues that this truck has is the bump stops. The cushion actually is completely gone. They got some Daystar bushings. I'll have to make a bracket that'll hold it off the frame a little bit. So here I got a shot from underneath on the passenger side. So you can see we've got that frame mount, the extension, the bump stop mount, and then now that lines up over the axle pad, the leaf spring pad. So here you can see the track bar mount cut, bent, tack welded up. Just need to go ahead and finish burning in some welds, and then we can move it over to the Excursion and mount it. Here we've got the new track bar bracket. Got some paint on it for some areas I wouldn't be able to get to once it's welded up. So we're going to go ahead and get this in place, get the bolt through for the track bar, and then get some tack welds and then burn it in. Well, out of wire, so I gotta go get some new wire. Here I've got my 2003 Ford Excursion with the 6-liter. I was working on updating the track bar bracket that had broke from the previous build, previous owners. And while I was at it, I thought, well, I'll just change the gears also from 488 to 430s. But then I also had a little bit of a wheel bearing bobble, so I said, well, let's change the wheel bearing as well. So at this point, I've got track bar bracket, gears, and wheel bearing, and my welder just barely reaches to get to tack the track bar bracket. I want to be able to get good positioning to get good welding on that. And also with the gearing, I figured it might just be easiest to go ahead and take the whole axle out of the truck so that I can work on it in the garage and get it positioned how I want with everything, have a lot more access and room to it. So follow along now as I take the front axle out of the Excursion, move it into the garage. I've now got my axle up on my workbench. I've got the track bar tack welded to the axle. I need to clean off some of the paint so I can get a good clean surface to weld with. I'll go ahead and burn this track bar in. Some adjustments, I'm going to have to cut a tab off on the lower front side just because of how I had to move things around a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get my safety equipment on and then go ahead and prep this thing for welding. Here I've got my track bar bracket all welded up now on the axle. Let it cool, then get some paint on it, keep it from rusting. And I'm going to turn my attention over to the gears, and then after that, replacing the bearings, getting the axle back under the truck. Also, my right passenger leaf spring has about a 1/2 inch sag in it, so I'm going to build up a 1/2 inch mini leaf to put in the spring pack to counterset that sag. So a few more things to get going on this. Final install complete. There is the track bar mount. Got my hydrosteer ram mount also. Got the bump stops fixed. You can also see the leaf spring spacer. Everything complete.